And now we're checking in with the fishing industry to find out how captains and crews have been affected by the fires since Sunday. Dan Flex, the executive director of Brazil Rock Lobster Association, which oversees lobster fishing areas 33 and LFA 34, covering Eastern Passage to Digby. Dan, good morning.
Good morning, Portia.
How are the captains and crews being affected by this in these areas?
Well, in the evacuation area, there are 4 ports that have been evacuated, so the captains and crews can't get to those vessels. They haven't been able to sail. They're out of their homes. They're not knowing what's occurring down there. In Gunning Cove, just yesterday afternoon, a fireman contacted the captain and said, it's quite bad here. We're losing things. We might lose the wharf. How do we start your boat? We're getting the boats away from the wharf. We're trying to save these boats. And I think there are 38 boats there that they got out of there and sailed to Sandy Cove. So it's horrific. It's tragic. I don't know what adjective we want to put to it.
Yeah, but they managed to get the keys, I guess, to the boats, get access to the boats, and convoy them away from that wharf.
Well, some of them were hot-wired. Some of them were broken into to save the vessels, to get them away. But yes, they were all recovered and taken to Sandy Point or over into Shelburne Harbor.
All right, and so they've been saved. And what about the wharf? This is the Gunning Cove wharf you mentioned. For now, that's safe?
That is unknown at this time. I haven't been I haven't been in the evacuation area, but I haven't received an update from anyone yet to know if the wharf is still remaining. There are other wharfs down in there as well as Ingomar and Port Latour, and it's a tragic situation. And the gear is their fishing gear is still in the water. The season was scheduled to end at midnight tonight, but Department of Fisheries and Oceans issued a variation order to extend the season for 2 days in an effort for these captains to be able to get their gear out of the water. But now, where the situation now is not only to get it out of the water, but where do you take it? These areas have been evacuated, and they don't have a place to take it. They don't have a place to store it. They might not have trailers and trucks left to haul the gear, and everyone is dispersed. So it's a very bad situation here.
And are you getting any guidance around that or offers for help? I mean, are there potential places for storage?
Yes, we've received offers of storage from Publico to as far away as Riverport, Lunenburg, Lockport. It's a lot of support, emotional support, financial support, logistical support for trucks and trailers to haul this gear, boats to go out and haul the gear and get the gear in for them. But so the season's been extended for 2 days, but we're not sure if the situation with the forecast that we just listened to a moment ago, it's going to be pretty bad. And even to be on the water in this area to try and haul the gear and fish, the smoke is just horrendous. It's horrendous for the people to try and be in. And thank God for the firefighters. Just imagine what they're going through as well.
And from what I understand, some of the fishermen are volunteer firefighters, so they've been called away from their boats and their communities for even longer periods of time?
That is correct. A great amount of the volunteer firefighters, everyone's connected somehow to the fishery. So, they're trying to deal with their family, evacuate, get their family set up, worry about the fishing gear, fight the fire. And it's not only the captains in these ports, but a crew member might live or does. Crew members do live within the evacuated area, but they fish in adjacent ports that are outside of the evacuated area. So those captains are affected as well. And we're probably talking, I would estimate, 200, 250 boats that are affected.
And are you giving advice to the crew and fishermen about safety? I mean, there's gear that needs to be rescued, but, you want people to be safe.
Well, yes, correct. The life and limb is foremost important. In their homes and their property, get their boat safe. The gear is safe in the water. We're just dealing with, and I have another call in a few moments with Department of Fisheries and Oceans to try and determine how can we resolve this issue in the safest manner. So the gear is in the water, it's safe, but when it'll come out and how we can resolve that issue is yet to be determined.
And will you also be talking, Dan, about extending the season even more than the 2 days or recouping those days, for a longer period of time?
All those options are available to us, Portia. It's that the answer to that. It's like the weather and the fire. We don't know what it's going to do to us. So we're going day by day, hour by hour.
How is this affecting the industry and the livelihood of these folks who, as you say, in some cases are stepping away from their work to help save the forests and save their communities and save as much as they can?
Well, as the season has been winding down, like some people have landed their gear and they have their lobster traps or their lobster pots that are stored in their yards or their pot yards, and now these pot yards are burned. They have their fishing equipment for other than lobster and all of that stuff, everything within that fire zone. So it's going to have a devastating effect on the industry overall and everything that evolves from the fishing industry.
Well, I can only imagine that feeling of those who rush to the wharf to try to get those boats out of there, just as a, to save at least, they're worth millions of dollars.
And I will add that they couldn't get to the wharf because they would have to go through a roaring fire to get to the wharf because the boats and the wharf was on the other end of the fire. So they had to come by boat with additional crew to rescue these boats and take them away.
Really? Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
So you're going to be speaking with DFO today. At what point, Dan?
As soon as this call is over.
Okay, well, I'll let you get to that. But is there anything else that you'd like to mention about the situation there in LFA 33 and 34 before we do let you go?
It's amazing to hear and actually see the support that's coming through from the industry and the communities. People have dropped off. Like I've taken 3 loads of water yesterday, like 250 pounds of bananas and apples and grab and go food for the firefighters and the evacuees with EMO in Barrington and the Barrington Lions Club. They're just phenomenal, the expertise and how they're catering to these people, because it is kind of heartbreaking to see an elderly person come in carrying a purse, a tiny backpack, and a dog, and said, "I have nowhere to go." Mm-hmm. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, we wish everybody well through this situation and that resolves quickly, but we know from what we're hearing about that fire being out of control, this is not going to end quickly at all. So we wish everybody safety, and it's good to hear that everybody is pitching in the way that they are. Dan, I'll look to follow up about that conversation with DFO, but I really appreciate talking to you right now.
Oh, thank you for the time. Stay safe.
You too. That's Dan Fleck, the Executive Director of Brazil Rock Lobster Association. Well, if you're like me, you might be thinking about going for a run this week.